Hi, I'm Larry Nimmer and welcome to Art. Today we're going to the Santa Barbara Open Studios tour. Let's see what studio we go to, randomly found by the Dart. Okay, the closest studio is actually number 1. Okay, number 1 is Karin Aggeler, acrylic on canvas, abstract expressions of landscapes, moods, and memories in vibrant colors.
I just like it when you make your own interpretation or relationship with the painting.
Well, hello there.
Oh, hi.
Hi, and you are?
I'm Karin Aggeler. Come around this way is, there's some more paintings in the living room here.
Can you tell me about this picture here?
Okay. When I came back from Hawaii, then I painted this painting. That to me was the colors of the orchids that I saw and the ocean. I just paint in this abstract way, expressing my feelings and emotions.
And if it could talk, what would this painting say?
That would say, I'm very happy.
What artist inspired you?
Richard Diebenkorn is one of the artists.
The American artist Richard Diebenkorn was best known for his abstract expressionist Ocean Park series, inspired by his surroundings in Santa Monica and featuring tranquil, geometric shapes. It was quite a contrast to the turbulent news of the day featuring Vietnam War protests. You can see his influence on Karin's work when you compare their shared inspiration from landscapes and color schemes. I guess I like Diebenkorn, but I think I prefer Karin Aggeler's paintings.
I do abstract paintings on canvas with acrylics.
Karin told me that before painting, she had been doing ceramics for 23 years.
Oh, this little one over here is mine.
What made you switch from ceramics to abstract art?
She didn't want to say on camera the unfortunate set of circumstances that denied her access to her pottery studio. But ever the optimist, she appreciates the advantages to painting.
Painting is easier on my body than ceramics.
Now I'm going to have you spin a pen, and wherever it points, I'm going to have you tell me about it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, it's pointing right at that chair. Tell me about it. It's a beautiful chair.
It is. It's quite old. This is an old chair that belonged to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was a very gracious woman.
Do you have a philosophy of life?
Make a difference whenever you can.
Karin, are you ready to throw a dart to determine the next studio? Go for it. Go for it. Okay, what number is it?
That is number 3.
Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3 is Danuta Bennett, representational painting, drawings, and photograph of architecture, cityscapes, and landscapes.
What's your question for Danuta?
Oh, let Danuta tell you about her background.
Well, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So there are different types, and I don't know what part of Poland your family is from.
Hello there.
Hi.
And you are?
Danuta Bennett. Welcome in my studio.
Thank you. I'll let you go back.
Well, I do mostly architectural inspired drawings and paintings. I look at them as something that is alive and it's telling the story. What would the building say if it could speak?
Well, for example, this you can stay where you are, but that painting there.
Yeah.
What type of things might it say about being alive?
Well, sometimes the structure needs to be dissolved to give a place for something new. And originally I painted detailed like every other piece that I do. But because where I was, because what this building kind of, how this building influenced me at that moment, I started kind of removing the structural elements from the side, from the balcony, and it was kind of like the building is deconstructed.
Wow.
And I think it's really important because I think it's kind of like in our life that we need to deconstruct stuff. We need to allow the things to dissolve in order to make a space for something new.
It got me to wondering, what new things does she need in her life? And it was timely to ask Karin Aggeler's question about Danuta's past.
Karin Aggeler asked me to ask you, what's your background?
Well, I'm originally from Poland. I grew up during the communist time. That was kind of difficult. So when I was choosing the choice between going to art school or doing something else, I was kind of discouraged because the options at that time, if I finished even art school, was to do communistic posters. That's what the artists did to survive.
Communist propaganda machines used mass-produced posters to influence the public's behavior and attitudes. The challenge for the poster artist was to draw upon the viewer's hidden store of associations to be receptive to the message. The style has been called suprematism, as it celebrated supremacy of geometry over reality. Often the messages were lies or distortion of facts, using the principle that if a lie is repeated over and over, it becomes true over time. In Poland, Danuta dabbled in art and graphic design, but she ended up becoming a scientist. When she immigrated to the United States, she did less work as a scientist and over time became a full-time artist. I asked one of the studio visitors her impression of Danuta's work.
What do you think about Danuta's work?
I love her work. It just has a mood about it. There's kind of a feeling of heritage about it and culture.
Indeed, you can see the influence of centuries of art and design. But I was surprised to see something else in her studio quite different from the monochromatic architecture work she does. I asked her about the colorful eggs she created.
They're called pisanki. There's traditional Eastern European way of coloring eggs.
To make a pisanki egg, a special tool dipped in hot wax is used to draw the patterns. Then the eggs are dipped in dyes. The craft started as a pagan tradition, but was adopted later by Christians to symbolize rebirth. Is it nice to do colorful things after doing a lot of monochromatic stuff?
It actually kind of makes the soul sing.
Is the monochromatic look kind of a throwback to Poland in communist times?
You know, I never thought about it that way, but you might be right. What I remember about this time was gray.
Do you have a philosophy of life?
Yes, I actually wrote there on my sign over there, create your own myth.
Create your own myth. They are Rumi the poet's words, and I agree with Danuta, they're still very relevant today. I can also see how Danuta likes to deconstruct architecture. In fact, she may be deconstructing her life too. She told me off camera she's going through a significant life change, and perhaps a rebirth of her own. I wondered if that was reflected in a new piece she's working on. What is she doing?
She's basically unbonding herself from the structure of the wall. She's removing her clothing. It's becoming more and more real, less and less structural, and she is becoming a real person.
So ready to randomly spin the brush?
Yes, I'm ready.
Oh. I see the brush is pointing at your tools. Tell me about your tools.
Yeah, that it's a lot of people ask about because
What's here?
this is actually test tubes. Test tubes for, from my scientific background.
Okay, are you ready to throw the dart now?
I will do my best. Okay. This is gonna be...
Oh, what's it closest to?
This is number 17. And Stephen Robeck. Stephen Robeck's photographs looks like paintings as a result of their presentations and natural-based subject.
Can you ask a question of him? What would you like to ask of him?
What makes his photographs so different than any other photographer in town?
And color values for every pixel in the sensor.
I'm Stephen Robeck, photographic artist. I do mostly nature-based, slightly abstracted photographic images. I really enjoy creating images whose actual origins may or may not be readily clear.
If that photo could talk, what would it say?
It would say it was really cold out there. The orange areas are catching first golden light of direct sun from a sun that is just starting to creep up above the horizon. This light lasts a matter of minutes, and 20 minutes later it's broad daylight and it's not interesting anymore. One of my first photographic heroes was W. Eugene Smith.
W. Eugene Smith was a 20th century photographer known for his emotionally charged, beautifully lit images promoting social justice. As a World War II photojournalist, he said he wanted to convey a message that revealed the greed, stupidity, and intolerance that cause wars. Suffering injuries himself from the war, he returned home and endeavored to create images to be the opposite of war. One of his first photos was this iconic image of his own children. He was known for his wonderful use of natural light and well-placed artificial light. As a Life magazine photographer, he made this famous image of a Japanese girl suffering from birth defects caused by pollution being bathed by her mother.
This image, which is redwood 370 degrees. It's actually a 370-degree view of a tree trunk.
All the way around it?
All the way around.
Wow.
So if you look carefully, this little detail here, this little piece of bark hanging down,
Yeah.
there it is, and there it is again. And so it creates a hyper-realistic view of a tree that is otherwise impossible to see.
Have you always made your living as a photographer?
No.
Well, what else have you done?
No. Oh, I ran a marketing company for 25 years. We made tiny toys for the fast food industry.
Oh, that's fun.
In China. This is a eucalyptus, also a 370, that has not only the turquoise, but also an area where it's in shadow mostly, and I think the result of water.
Okay, you have something to spin to see which direction it points at?
It's a very sharp awl.
Okay, go for it. Okay, let's see. It's pointing.
It's pointing where we've already been.
Well, actually, it's pointing into your storage area. What's back there?
This is a chop saw, which is what I use to make my frames.
Oh, you make the frames?
Oh yeah, I do everything. So the chop saw normally lives where the snack bowl is.
Danuta asked me to ask you, how is your work different from other photographers?
One way that it's different is...
Stephen feels his particular method of production is different, how he shoots in raw data and makes color and design decisions.
That's the raw file, and that's the edited file.
Also, his particular method of mounting, including his handmade frames.
You end up with an image that really is floating in space inside a natural wood frame.
Do you have a philosophy of life?
There was a great saying by the poet Rilke that the good marriage is that in which each appoints the other guardian of his solitude.
And that means each one should make sure the other has their own space?
Correct. It's like an early version of let you be you and let me be me.
Stephen mentioned another photographer that inspired him.
Including Ansel Adams.
Ansel Adams, the well-known landscape photographer, was an ardent conservationist as well as a master technician. He pioneered the system of visualization.
I see the picture in my mind's eye. I make the photograph, and I give you the print as the equivalent of what I saw and felt.
He would pre-visualize the black and white tonal balance and contrast and the cropping. Adams used view cameras and tediously shot one 8x10 negative at a time.
The photographer's problem is to sort of establish a configuration out of chaos.
The image would appear upside down on the ground glass. After the exposure, the darkroom process was another opportunity for creativity.
Negative is like the composer's score. All the information's there. And then the print is a performance.
Here's one of his lesser-known prints of me. Yeah, that's me in a photo he took. I was a Berkeley photography student in 1972, and he lectured to our class and posed for photos, and then later invited us to his Big Sur darkroom, where he clicked this Polaroid shot to demonstrate the new XX70, and I happened to be standing in front of him. I asked him to sign it, and he said, "No way." My son put together this piece he has hanging in his home.
Click.
You ready to choose your own random spot for me to go to next?
Sure. So I'm just going to throw it right about there.
Okay,
so
let's see
what is closest.
What would you say is closest number?
I would say 18. 18 is Rob Robinson, Loose and Fresh Plein Air Landscapes of California's Coastline and Ranchlands.
Stephen posed this question to the next artist.
If I was a plein air painter painting a scene and there was a power line in an otherwise beautiful scene, as a photographer, I would take it out. My question to the plein air painter is, would he or she choose to not paint the power line in the first place? People accuse photographers of cheating by photoshopping out the power line. But I think that's ridiculous, because if I was a painter, I would leave it out too.
And you are?
Rob Robinson.
Rob, Stephen Robeck asked, you as a plein air painter, do you leave in power lines or take them out?
Gosh, well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes the power poles, they give scale to a painting. They might open a painting up like a road does. And I'm not actually necessarily trying to do a representation or an exact representation what I'm looking at.
I asked Rob to tell me about one of his paintings.
I'll talk about this one. It was really challenging getting the color of the water behind in shadow correct. I wrestled with it for a long time. And just to get the highlight of the cracks in the rock to pop and yet still feel the bulk of the rock.
Rob told me how he wanted the viewer's eye to travel.
It comes down onto these rocks, and then you see these lines that point you out this rock element out to the point. Then you see these wave lines coming back in, actually to create a circle of vision.
Are you a full-time artist?
I am not, actually, no. I've got a Santa Barbara mortgage, and those don't go together very well.
Hi there. What else do you do for a living?
I work in the renewable energy industry.
Rob, what artists have influenced you?
Probably the first would be my grandmother, who was a well-known, somewhat famous etcher in the early California period in the 1900s. Her name was Mildred Bryant Brooks.
There aren't many women artists from the mid-20th century who made a living from art and supported their family, but Mildred Bryant Brooks was one of them. Her etchings can be found in the Smithsonian. The etching process has not changed much over the centuries. A metal plate is covered in wax, and a needle is used to scrape away the wax. When complete, the plate is put in acid and the exposed lines get etched out of the metal. After the wax is removed, ink is applied and forced into the grooves. The ink on the flat surface is wiped off. Soft paper is placed on the etching plate and covered with pads. The press applies pressure, and the soft paper is forced into the ink grooves.
Come here,
Rob offered to show me one of his grandmother's etchings.
Here's her etching called Boy Trouble. And you can see the little boards nailed into the tree, the little tree house in there, and all these little kids up there climbing around in the tree, just pranking around on a Saturday, you know. Get this sense of space. It was simply a needle, you know, a dry needle, and cutting into copper. It was really remarkable. She had a wonderful hand. It's kind of a mess, but you know.
And now it was time to spin something to find a random subject to talk about. He led me out to his art shed. Ready to spin something to talk about it? Ready, go.
Whoa.
Okay, it's pointing right over this backpack. What's this deal with this backpack here?
This is my, basically my painting setup. You know, this is what I take to paint when I go out. Most everything I do is on location. You know, I've got a little pair of glasses in here. I've got, you know, I got a little sketch pad that I might use. Just to make sure that it's going to work, you know. There's telephone poles. Anyway, and in here would be the easel. You know, there's a little vest, there's some water, a little sweatshirt, you know, and here is a little thing of turpentine, a couple extra paints, and this basically is the easel, and it basically opens up like this. These are legs that fold out. It's a tripod. They fold out, and then you got your palette right here. I can put a fairly large canvas on here.
I asked Rob Robinson to tell me his philosophy of life.
Bad news isn't always as bad as you think, you know, because in it sometimes is opportunity. Good news isn't always necessarily as good as you think either. But there's always the other side of a rock.
To find an historic example, I searched online for an artist whose bad news had become a good opportunity, and I came across Caravaggio. Michelangelo Merici de Caravaggio was born in 1571. At a young age, the plague killed most of his family. He became an orphan at 6 years old and was forced to live on the streets, doing anything for pennies. This led to a painter hiring him as an assistant and later apprentice. His life of poverty proved to be an inspiration to his professional career as an artist. Caravaggio's style emphasized the poverty and common humanity of everyday people, particularly in his religious paintings. He was one of the first artists to emphasize ragged clothing, dirty feet, and natural defects and flaws. He found success by humanizing the divine and making his paintings accessible to the average viewer. Unfortunate events in his life led to his becoming the most famous painter in Rome of his time. Caravaggio helped invent Baroque naturalism.
So you're now going to randomly choose where I go next. Why don't you throw the dart?
Fantastic. It's a very clever idea, I might say.
Thank you. Okay, what number is it closest to?
Looks like 10.
Okay, 10. Can you read the back of 10?
Rick Garcia, oil paintings on linen featuring California landscape, architecture, and botanicals.
You know of Rick, right?
Yeah, I do. He's a wonderful painter, a great guy.
Nice to see you.
He does the best sort of succulent paintings I've ever seen. I mean, he's just incredible.
They don't suck, huh?
They don't suck. That is for sure.
You must be?
Oh, hey, I'm Rick Garcia.
And can you tell me about what's going on here?
But this is one of my favorite subject matters, the agave attenuata.
And what is it about the agave that appeals to you?
The softness, the flowing quality to it. It's a plant that I've painted enough times to really start understanding how different it looks in different situations.
Talking about agave paintings gave me an idea for a quick left turn to my local museum, which just so happens to have an agave painting by the Impressionist artist Claude Monet. So I went to check it out.
Sorry, Claude. I love Rick's agaves. So you're going to spin the dart on the floor and see what it points to. Okay, it's pointing to... What's going on in this little dish here?
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
That's where I have my razor blades, and what I do with these is I cut the tops off of my oil sticks.
You cut the top off?
Well, it dries. Like oil paint, it dries. So in order to utilize it, I need to shave off a little bit of the top and expose the wet color underneath.
And then do you squish it onto the palette?
No, I actually can apply it directly with a brush. I just smear it around. And then if this was my canvas, I would paint it on like that.
I see. Gee, I'm awfully sorry. I think I knocked over one of your
I'll
paintings.
send you a bill.
Please do. Let's see. What did I knock over? For me. Ooh, that thing is beautiful. Are those fire pokers?
They are. I started painting this with a gold leaf background originally, and then came to the conclusion that I wanted to paint over the gold leaf background. And I just haven't finished it.
Wow, it's beautiful.
So,
from different angles with the light on it differently, it looks in different ways.
yeah, well, that's the gold leaf in the background reflects through a little bit. You can see all the little speckles of gold on the side there. I actually prefer not seeing the gold, not being quite as influenced by it, but it was sort of an experiment, and that's one of the things that is fun about the process. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but even when you lose, you gain something, you learn something.
Were you a commercial illustrator?
Yeah, I did a lot of commercial illustration and design for many years, up until 2000. Many illustrators have gone into the fine art world and been very successful at it.
So naturally, I had to do a little research of what fine artists started as commercial illustrators, and there were many. During the Civil War, Winslow Homer was sent to the front lines by Harper's Weekly as an artist correspondent. He sketched battle scenes and camp life for the magazine readers. Later, as a fine artist, he sometimes returned to the Civil War themes.
Wonder if I could grow my mustache like that.
James Rosenquist started as a billboard painter. When he later made the leap to fine art, his images often retained billboard imagery with bold hues and large scale.
So what are you about to do?
I'm about to throw this dart into Santa Barbara, and whoever happens to be the studio artist closest to where this lands is the next person that you're going to be interviewing.
Let's check it out. Okay, let's see what it's closest to. What number is that?
29.
Well, what's 29? Who's 29?
29 is Cathy Quiel. She's a watercolorist who does rich and vibrant, mood and whimsy watercolors. Professional artist, illustrator, and instructor.
Okay, so what's the question I should ask Cathy?
I would ask Cathy what it was in particular that made her choose this direction as an occupation.
Okay, so ladies, he's going to come in with a camera, so we need to make a little path. Yeah.
Well,
And
hello.
I need to.
And you are?
I'm Cathy Quiel. My palette is bright and vibrant. I find they make people smile, and almost all of them are oversized. I just got entranced with these bagels, and it was an opportunity. This area here is using instant coffee. You throw it on wet paper and it dissolves some and does that neat texture. So from bagels I went to donuts, which is kind of fun to try to get the different textures that different donuts would have.
What's the name of that one?
Cascading fudge. Later on to pies. No, I was intrigued by the repetition of shapes and the shadows connecting these shapes. Some of that reddish chocolate color falls into the shadow. Some of this orangey red falls into the shadow.
How much would you sell a painting like that for?
This $800 to $900.
It's a bargain.
Pardon?
It's a bargain.
Oh, well, I'll wrap it up for you.
Here's a quick look at food by other artists.
I started the Submerged series when my neighbor commissioned me to do 3 paintings. He and his children had gone to the Caribbean, and he had a bunch of photographs he'd taken underwater that he wanted me to utilize to do these paintings. It's a fun, different environment, a whole different perspective. If you're down at the very bottom of the water looking up, there's this neat reflection that you double see the person. It's a lot of taking your brush and just splattering paint to give that sense that she's just splashed into the water. The first ones was this little girl up close with, you see her eyes and her hair floating around. That's really fun when the hair floating. That started the series. And then I just started doing more and more of them.
I then searched underwater art and came up with this odd branch of underwater painting.
You're about to spin a paintbrush, and wherever the bristles point, I'm going to have you tell me about it.
Oh,
Okay, and go ahead. And let's see, let's move aside for a moment. Okay, it's going right, oh, it's moving over. It's going to this sign. What does it say?
Your most precious jewels you'll ever have around your neck are the arms of your children.
That's a nice thought.
Isn't it?
Rick Garcia asked me to ask you, what made you get into painting?
I think it's something you can do for your entire life. It makes your brain grow. It makes you keep coming up with ideas. It allows you to be out in the world exploring those ideas, and makes you happy. My series I'm working on right now it's called the Out of Pocket series. And I was at an outdoor wedding and I saw a young man that was about 25. He had a baby bottle in his back pocket and plastic keys. And I thought, boy, he wouldn't be caught dead like that 2 years ago. And that started the painting. I did a painting of his backside with the baby bottle and the keys. Yeah, the Out of Pocket series is a little narrative, a little story of that person. It's giving you clues about their personality. I'm the woman going around taking photographs of people's butts. It tells a lot about people, what's in their pockets.
Okay, so what are you about to do?
I'm about ready to throw the dart for your next visit.
Okay, let's see where it goes.
Oh.
Okay, let me see where it is. What's the number that it's closest to, would you say?
Wow. Number 32. It is artist Larry R. Rankin.
Larry Rankin's works have a distinctive, emotionally evocative ingenuity and an intuitive and skilled understanding of form.
You have a question for the next artist who's a sculptor.
Yes, I do. My question would be is what is your favorite material to use?
Hi, Larry. The art. Oh my God. What are we going to do here?
Larry,
nice seeing you.
Nice to see you. We randomly landed on your place. Show me what you got here.
Oh my God, where do we want to start? This is alabaster right here. This is stone. And what it is the beauty of the curvature of the stone. I use chisels. I also use big grinders. And what I do is I use power sanders on it. The alabaster has a translucentness. And the more you carve it and then polish it, the more beautiful everything comes out where it pops out. Feel it. Just put your hands on it. And I love this piece.
I guess you like people to touch your pieces?
Oh, touch them as much as you want. I think that's really important. The piece needs to be touched. It's not like a painting where I'm worried about anything. Touch it, feel it, caress it.
Now, should one avoid the breasts when you touch it? Or?
Oh, no. Grab them, feel them. You know, no. Here, there's another one.
What's it doing over there?
And then from there...
Would you mind taking off your hat? Because it's kind of shading. Are you good with that?
There we go, it's off. So this bronze here is called Together. And I'm doing this, I just shine the light on it so you could really see it. This is in my master bedroom. And I made this look like stone on purpose. Those lines that you see in there that look like stone through here, what that is that's silver nitrate. And when you put the silver nitrate on with the heat, it just kind of goes crazy and goes whatever direction it wants to. And a lot of people will tell me that, no, this is not bronze, this is stone. So what I do is I take it like this and I go, yep, it's definitely bronze because you can see it by the bottom of it. If you look at the arms and you look here, they're going into each other because there's so much love and so emotion that they are with each other and they're going to be with each other the rest of their life. This piece here was an influence on a piece I did 7 feet high in concrete. Let me show you the 7-foot version.
Okay.
This piece here is 7 feet tall. I'm 6'4". This piece is made out of concrete. And the reason I have a cactus on it, raccoons love to come in and have sushimi. They love my live fish. But I'm going to show you this piece right here.
You mean the cactus discourages the raccoons?
Yeah, but put your finger on here. I guarantee you, those little sucker, they'll grab a hold of you. Raccoons, remember, are tactile. They want to go ahead and touch things. They're really good about getting fish and stuff. They get their fingers in here. No more. Come on back into my studio. We have bronze, wood, stone. It's dark, I know, but walk in and you'll see why.
Okay.
Go ahead. And now look over at the edge. Now look over that way.
Oh, you there?
Tell me when you want the light on.
Okay, you can turn on the light.
Should I hold my gut in?
Does your shirt also your philosophy of life or not?
Earth without art, yeah. If you don't have art, we don't have an earth. It's like, you know, if we don't have oxygen, we're not living. Come on. A lot of times when I'm working on a piece of art, what will happen is there will be something that will happen, like a piece of stone will break off, maybe the wood is no good. And what it becomes is serendipity for the artist. Because what you do is you look at that And somehow it becomes so much better than what it was with the idea that you had. And I was carving a piece one time, I had the legs like this, and this whole back area fell off. And I went, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Stood back and looked at it. I changed it. And all of a sudden the feet are like this instead of flat. And all of a sudden it's like now you have the movement. Somebody's watching out for me. It's so cool.
Throughout art history, there have been many examples of accidents that made the art better. One of the more famous ones is the large glass. The conceptual artist Marcel Duchamp told the story to an interviewer in the 1950s.
So here you are, Marcel, looking at your big glass.
Yes. And the more I look at it, the more I like it. Like the breaks and the cracks. You remember how it happened in 1926?
Yes, I remember hearing.
In Brooklyn, they put the two panes on top of one another on a truck, flat, not knowing what they were carrying, and bouncing for 60 miles. They have a shape. There's a symmetry in the cracking. Curious intention that I'm not responsible for, ready-made intention, in other words, that I respect and love.
If I was in New York, I would have been an extremely successful artist, but I said, I'm not moving to New York.
Cathy Quiel asked me to ask you, what's your favorite medium to sculpt in?
I really like the idea of bronze, an idea of it because the finished piece in bronze can be left and buried for 10,000 years, and you can dig it up, and it's still there.
This is your phallic piece, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
What's the title of this one?
Within. Think about it.
I love this piece, too. I love the beard on him.
If you think about it, I put kind of a Popeye thing on him. You know, it's like I'm Popeye the Salamandra. Boop, boop.
I will sit here a lot of times and I'll just draw. I'll go through page through page through page. Like, again, this is an example of a piece that I did called The Accordion Player. But this is the accordion player right here. What would it be from? Could it be some gypsies playing, or?
It was about time for me to wrap up my visit with Larry R. Rankin, and for that matter, this episode of D'Art. But Larry had one more story to tell me on the value of looking at your work from different perspectives, if you really want to be a rock star.
As I drew this piece, it ended up as this piece right here. This is called Serenade. It has nothing to do with energy or anything else. If anything, it has to do with lack of energy. It's like...
Then he experimented with it in a different orientation.
Well, let's take this and let's turn it this way. And when I was doing that, all of a sudden, over here, I have to do this. All of a sudden, I saw this same piece, rock and roll. No, it's like I'm in the Zen, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I'm seeing something that is so different out of exactly the same thing, but instead of being relaxed and mellow and sweet and gentle and let's go into this world, now I'm getting into this like, hey, let's get this thing on.
Well, it's been a fun tour by the dart of Santa Barbara artists. From the abstract shapes of Karin Aggeler, to the Eastern European infused images of Danuta Bennett, to the luscious photographs of Stephen Robeck, then the plein air paintings of Rob Robinson, followed by the beautiful plants of Rick Garcia, to the whimsical watercolors of Cathy Quiel, and finally to the humor and manliness of Larry R. Rankin. Some artists are on the radar. Some artists are off the radar. D'Art does not care.
I follow D'Art.